from Steele County, North Dakota is present.
Say that again?
The boy from Steele County, North Dakota.
Who's the boy from Steele County? Is that Ben?
Yes, it is.
I didn't recall Steele County for sure. I was thinking Kidder. That's right. Of course it's Steele.
Well, that's how he identifies.
What are your pronouns from Steele County? Hang on. Anytime, man.
All right. Welcome to the Folk School on Willow Creek, featuring University Distinguished Professor Tom Ezern, singing and telling stories from the Salon on Willow Creek.
I need a bed for the night, boys, and my horses need hay. I've been riding that road line on the hot dish highway. I help my father plow and sow and harrow in the grain. I help to reap and rake and mow and load the harvest wain. Then load the wain, heap the ripe sheaves high. I love to load the harvest wain for a farmer's son of mine. I feed the horses night and morn and keep the barn so neat. I help to husk the pearly corn and thresh the golden wheat. Then thresh the wheat, see the light chaff fly. I love to thresh the golden wheat for a farmer's son of mine. Ere the summer leaves grow brown and autumn frost begin, I like to shake the apples down and help to gather them in. Then shake them down from the boughs so high. I love to shake the apples down for a farmer's son of mine. Stormy winter days to sit in some snug nook beside the wood fire's cheery blaze and read a pleasant book. And when the storm shrieketh madly by, I love to know the stock is warm for a farmer's son of mine. I may not know who I am, but I know where I came from. So writes Wallace Stegner, Pulitzer Prize winner and prairie boy, in an essay I assign every fall to my students in the history of the Great Plains. Stegner here addresses what he calls the question mark in the circle, the identity question: who am I? And what am I doing here? Likewise, in the prologue to my own book, Pacing Dakota, I make homage to the greatest of all poets of the plains, William Stafford, with lines from his poem, Farm on the Great Plains. A telephone line goes cold, birds tread it wherever it goes. A farm, back of a great plain, tugs an end of a line. Stafford may be feeling forlorn about the disconnection of his life from that farm back of a great plain where mother is not at home, father is not at home, but the poem is more about resolve. Stafford resolves to be the plain. So not long ago, I was feeling a little forlorn myself, laid up and hurting from an accident, but then I had the opportunity to sing to a gathering of friends a couple of songs from my grandmother's ballad book. A Farmer's Son Am I was the first one, and after that, Hello Central, Give Me Heaven. You probably never heard of these old songs, but I can tell you, they lit up the telephone line of memory that spans a lifetime to the back of that plane. Because, yeah, I know where I came from, but now and then I need a reminder. I'm frequently heard to remark, sometimes here, that I am a farmer. A critic might tell me, you're not a farmer, you're just a landlord, the heir of a farm. But that raises the issue of what it means to be heir to a piece of land, to be affected by an old song like A Farmer's Son Am I. Like most farmers' sons of my generation, especially if they happen to have older brothers who were much more capable farmers, I left the home place for another line of work as an academic historian. My dissertation, however, was a history of custom wheat harvesting on the Great Plains of North America, which set me on the yellow road toward being not just a professor, but a scholar of agricultural history and prairie life, a farm boy historian. The academy has been a place of tenuous tenure all my life, but I've been fortunate in my professional career. More to the point, though, I have job security in that no matter how many essays I deliver, how many books I write, songs I sing, I will never be done telling the story of farm and prairie, which is good. I'm a little long in the tooth to buck bales or throw calves, but I can tell stories. And sometimes sing them. The theme song for this weekly webcast, the Willow Creek Folk School, starts out, on the great western prairies, I do the work of the Lord. My saddle's my pillow, and I preach from my board. Now, there was a time during the folky days, back in the last century, when I made rent with my Martin guitar and songs. And so now, even as I've come to my 70 and have taken up regular public singing again, it's another instance of returning to my roots. We light up the mic from our place on Willow Creek, and sure enough, again tonight, people gather around virtually. Just like on account of those weekly pieces on Prairie Public I do, everywhere I go, people come up and introduce themselves because they recognize not the face, but my voice. And I'm glad that they do. The lines are still live. Myself will be the plain. That's our intro for tonight, Dr. K.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'm not all that original, right? I doubt there's very little I can say that you haven't heard before. A Farmer's Son Am I. Yes, I did get that from the ballad book of my grandmother, Maida Melis Easern, who married my grandfather, Alfred Easern, who was a farmer's son. My father was a farmer's son, as mine. That song was often sung in school gatherings of all kinds, and from the 1880s through the early 1900s, which sets a bang right at the time when my grandmother was getting her schooling. I know we've got an order of service here. What are we doing now? NDSU Press has been pretty much just idle this week, I presume.
We have not been idle. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about what we've been doing, though, but I am going to invite everyone to sign up for our e-newsletter, which goes out almost weekly. But that's where we post pictures of what's happening, who's doing what, write about new books that come out, and just share the news of what's going on with the press. So I'm going to put a link in here if I can, and invite people to sign up for our e-newsletter that comes out about once a week. And while I'm talking about the press, I have news that Dr. Smith's field experience group out in Minot this week I don't know, there might be 10 or 12 students.
There must be, yeah.
There's quite a few. I saw a picture today. Well, Tatum and Oliver are both publishing students as well as public history students. So they let us know that they're all watching tonight from Minot.
Oh, my.
Well, where they're working at their field school.
Why not?
So hello to them.
And why not Minot?
And Tatum and Oliver, come home. I need you.
Well, I got a bone or two to pick with Oliver, too. Yeah. All right. Now they won't come home, right? Oh, they're wonderful people to be associated with.
Yeah.
Oh, and best wishes to all of you in Minot or wherever you happen to be tonight. And if you're tuning in, more than welcome. Cool. Way cool. Hey, check in on the chat line with Dr. Kelly.
Well, Joe Gardewin must have seen the pictures that the students posted today where they were posing as you. I don't know. Joe Gardewin says, Tatum, Tom's mini-me.
Yeah, right. That would be her misfortune, would it not? Oh. Okay. It's kind of discovery time, or it's more thinking about discovery time. Every week, bringing in new stuff about old songs, and sometimes new old songs, if that makes any sense. Old songs that were really al Quran at some point in the history of the Great Plains. Careful there, Angie. Okay. But got lost along the way because no song catcher picked them up a century ago. Well, we're backstopping that now, going to the historical sources and bringing those songs back. One of the things that happened, for instance, this would be late in 2021, like about Thanksgiving, bang, whole new ballad complex. I've said for years that the true anthem of the homesteading frontier is Little Old Sod Shanty on the Plains. But I couldn't pin down its origins. It appears in 1883, and it's in newspapers all over the place. And then I found out why. And I don't remember how exactly the discovery happened, but I learned that it had a forerunner called Little Old Sod Dug-out on the Plains. And when things change title, unless you find other embedded search terms and go after them, then you don't get the transition. Well, I did. And I've sung at least pieces of Little Old Sod Dug-out out on the Plains a couple times. It's this song written by Frank Jerome, and dates in publication from 1880 in the Smith County Pioneer of Kansas. Now, a little bit of a spoiler for next week. We'll have the story of how this Western Kansas song moved to Dakota Territory and morphs into Little Old Sod Shanty on the Plains, and then comes back to Kansas and Nebraska from Dakota Territory. But for tonight, we're dealing with Little Old Sod Dug-out on the Plain by Frank Jerome. And I was going to try to work up everything I had on this, and I realized, there's something I need to hash out. A lot of these songs, it's not only a matter of discovering the songs, but figuring out, so what? What's this song tell us about life on the Great Plains of North America in that time from about 1880 to 1920, that is the heyday of balladry? And then I realized, we've been overlooking something in this song. Briefly, it tells the story of Frank Jerome and Will Jenkins. Now, Frank Jerome was a journeyman printer, and by all accounts, a whiz of a compositor. And he would set the type for the papers. And these guys tended to travel a lot. They'd get fired, they'd get angry, one reason or another, and then they're always employable at the next town up the road. And Jerome was no exception. His boss, though, at the Smith County Pioneer, was Will Jenkins, Jr. Now, by the evidence of the ballad, at some time they must have batched together while meeting residence requirements of a homestead claim. Neither one of them ever proved up a homestead claim. I'm guessing that one of them at least took a claim and then relinquished it, that is, sold it out before taking actual title. So somebody else who then would prove up the homestead. But it appears that they were batching for a while out there. Now, Dr. Kelly was asking me something about the circumstances of this, and yes, they both are married already, but evidently they were out, not uncommon, married guys who went out alone to take up claims, sometimes start businesses like Jenkins, working on the paper there and that sort of thing. But there's no indication in the Ballad, certainly, now, that women have arrived with them yet. This would be the late years of the 1870s. Now, keep in mind, there could be poetic license going on. They could be, but I'm convinced from the type of detail and the tone of the thing that they were batching it there together for a while. I say batching it. Now, there's a term, see? There are other terms that seem to apply. One of them is they have their various adventures and misadventures, and then they go on to other things in life, right? One term that seems to apply is the buddy story or the buddy narrative, which most people kind of have some familiarity with because of its currency in movies, right, Dr. K?
Right. So we talk about a bromance.
That's a more modern term.
Yeah. Okay. But we could think of Dukes of Hazzard.
The Dukes of Hazzard? Oh.
They were cousins, I suppose, not just friends. But...
And did you have a favorite character in the Dukes of Hazzard?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch. Some scholars would trace the origin of the buddy narrative to Gilgamesh, the narrative of Gilgamesh. Some to the Aeneid, Achilles and Patroclus. That may be getting a little bit wonky about it, but it's certainly a fixture in popular culture. But it's a commonplace in literary analysis too. This relationship, it can be two women, but commonly it's two guys, right?
Did these two guys know each other before they went to Kansas?
No, I don't think so. I think Jenkins just picked up or inherited, possibly, Jerome as his compositor, his typesetter.
Okay.
But as I say, both married and both had kids already. What I propose to do, this business of male narratives and men living without women, this has become a bit of a chestnut for scholars of, pardon me, going deep here, post-colonial studies, in particular gender issues in post-colonial studies. It's also the subject of a lot of popular writing. Here's an article in The Age, and it's arguing, this is as of 2008, and perhaps it's even more so now, quoting a psychologist from, this is an Australian publication, The Age. There's some evidence that the nature of friendships between men is changing in some instances, he writes. A strong influence of generational differences tends to be acknowledged when looking at these changes. For example, a lot of younger males who are more emotionally expressive and responsive than previous generations were brought up by feminist mothers of the 70s. Now, another way of looking at that would be what goes around comes around. Because I tell you, you go in, if you study certainly the history of folk song and singing, you know that males of the late 19th century, the height of the Gilded Age, and in the early 20th century, pretty darn sentimental, and that male-male friendships were tight.
Well, they had to depend on each other out in lonely places.
Oh yeah, and that's why the Oddfellows and the Masons and all the lodges were such big deals. These are male bonding deals. All right, so you want to say something about folk song. You look for, now getting back to 19th century historical ways, you're looking for the idea in it. And the idea in this thing is, it's the passing of the frontier, But that is an element in a larger plot line, which is this relationship with two guys. Okay, so I'm going to start singing stanzas of Little Old Sod Dug-out on the Claim. Dr. Kelly is going to follow along with a critical eye and ear. And let's see if we can kind of trace the development of this bromance. Yeah, sometime in about 1878 in Smith County, Kansas. Familiar tune. The tune is actually Little Old Log Cabin on the Lane. A lot of tough songs stole that tune. Well, I thought I'd write Dear Billy of the days not long ago when we arrived neath Kansas' sunny clime. Of the days that were the hardest and the life we thought so blue, when buffalo were roaming all the time. When roughing it was all the go and trials made the man, no matter if his clothes were somewhat plain. Yet those were happy days, my boys, no, if we did have to live in that little old sod dugout on the claim. Ah, the years are rolling o'er me wherever I may roam, but the past has its pleasures and its pain. But down within my heart I'm thinking of those days in that little old sod dugout on the claim. So that's an establishment verse, the days not long ago. So it's not, it's recent past. It's just a couple of years ago. But the buffalo's still roaming on the plain at that time. But and rough times, but those were happy days, my boys. Now the years are rolling o'er me, and the past has its pleasures and its pain. These days are gone forever, but fond memories. All right, what can you intimate anything about the relationship or friendship here yet, Dr. K?
Well, I'm going to go back. I'm not so sure it's just a couple of years past the way they're describing it, but they're falling into a pattern of what happens when you reminisce and you take the rough edges off of what happened in the past, and now they're happy days, when at the time it might not have seemed that they were so happy.
Well, we're about to come to some of those misadventures. Mm-hmm. I'm going to look back at the line one, though. I thought I'd write Dear Billy. All right. Now, I've studied some more of this newspaper stuff than you have. You've got the stack there, but you got it like 10 minutes ago. Dear Billy, Will Jenkins is not known as Billy anywhere in print. So that's a familiar name, friendly name. And he's the boss of Frank Jerome. But Jerome's calling him by the diminutive Billy. All right, that's
maybe Frank was kind of trying to disguise something.
Oh, it could be. I also suspect Frank, I have to look this up, I think he's a little older than Billy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's speaking to someone younger.
Yeah. Well, we had no harvests then to reap, and sod corn was our all, and we had the hardest work to make it grow. For the grasshoppers were hungry, Will, their appetites were good, and 1,000 of them marching up each row. And how we raved and cussed, dear Will, to see our bread destroyed, and made our cries echo over the plain. How we cussed poor Kansas, Will, when we laid down to sleep in that little old sod dugout on the claim. Okay, anything developing here?
Camaraderie and that dependence and helpful relationship.
They're beginning to rely on one another because there are external threats. Now that's a buddy story thing. There are external threats and the buddies have to pull together. Just like on the Dukes of Hazzard. All right. Now the way we made the dugout, Will, was first to dig the hole along the lonely path by Buffalo trod. And we cut us down a tree or two with which to make the roof, then covered it all over with prairie sod. The window was a stovepipe, Will, the floor was simply earth, and the door always creaked as though with pain. And didn't we have a high old time the first night we did sleep in that little old sod dugout on the claim. I'm going to continue because the plot continues. Now the roof, you know, was leaky and the rain came pouring in, and we walked around the dugout all the night. And the water still kept rising and the bedclothes did the same, and both of us were in a wretched plight. How we cursed the country and cursed our wretched selves, and cursed at the roof and at the rain, and cursed the team for bringing us to such a hole as that, and a little old sod dugout on the claim. Okay, so here we've got a definite episode. What do you make of this stuff?
He's talking about their misery at the time.
Common suffering?
Yes.
Yeah? Any other people around?
It's just them, their wretched selves.
And buffalo. And they cut down a tree. Yeah, a tree. Is that just a coincidence? Mm-hmm. They cut down the tree. Covered over with prairie sod. This is a sort of an Edenic thing, isn't it? There's nobody else around. These are your two original humans in the landscape by this ballad. And then the rain comes in, and the old dugout doesn't keep it out very well. Then you get that stuff, and the water still kept rising, and the bedclothes did the same.
They're flooding inside the...
Yeah, they're the dugout's underground level, so it's flooding.
Yeah.
What's the deal with the bedclothes?
I don't know.
They're wearing nightshirts, right? Don't you think? And they're lifting the nightshirts because the water's coming up on them. And they cursed at the roof and the rain and the team. And we cursed our wretched selves. Who don't they curse? Neither one of them says to the other, whose stupid idea was this? You know?
Oh, they're not cursing each other?
They're not cursing each other.
Well,
that's
polite.
There's something to that. They're not cursing each other. Okay, the buddy story continues. Our dishes, they were meager build, likewise our furniture, and we didn't care just how it was made. And washed our clothes so neatly in the horse trough near the door, and cooked our frugal flapjacks on a clay spade. The coffee mill, it ground corn, but sugar we had none, so we used to boil the sorghum cane. And our shirts all went for dish rags, 'twas the best thing we could do in the little old sod dugout on the claim. All the years are rolling over me, wherever I may roam, and the past has its pleasures and its pain. But down in my heart, I'm a-thinking of those days in that little old sod dugout on the claim. Okay, what's happening now?
They're being very thrifty, very clever, and making multiple uses of what they have on hand.
This is the old settler talking, you know. Here's the way we did it in the really early days.
Or if you bring it back into modern TV, they're MacGyvering it. So.
I like that line. We cooked our frugal, like you say, frugal, slapjacks on a spade.
Yes.
Isn't that an image? You're holding the spade up over, just like I like to cook stuff on a pitchfork out back here.
We don't tell people that, Tom.
You know, we kind of wipe it down carefully first. Okay, this is a different type of verse. You remember when we bought those beans, $1 worth, I think, and how we resolved to have a feast, and how you filled the pot with them to soak them overnight, forgetting that those beans could rise like yeast. And how you went to sleep, dear Will, and how the beans did swell and covered you and the floor just the same. And what a startling sight of beans at morn met our gaze in that little old sod dugout on the claim. That wouldn't happen to anybody like you, would it, Dr. K?
It didn't happen with beans, but like Minnie young or wives wanting to cook for a crowd at first. I did make some spaghetti that took over the kitchen. But yeah, I can relate.
Well, okay. You got a narrative development. A buddy story needs comic episodes, usually with stupid people doing something
making
stupid.
fun of themselves.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not mean comic.
But in these, in a typical buddy narrative, it doesn't last forever. But the scene has changed around the place, and wheat has made to grow, and settlers gathered in 100 strong. And dugouts soon were plenty, and new friends were then made. Nights were spent in dancing and with song. What jolly boys our neighbors were, how kind to everyone. Blessings seemed to linger when they came. The Queen began to love with a pride both firm and strong that little old sod dugout on the claim. What's the nature of the change going on here, Dr. K?
They're maturing into their place. They're learning to love where they are, respect it maybe.
You think?
I do.
See, I
What jolly boys our neighbors were, a blessing seemed to linger when they came.
Does he say jolly boys?
Yes.
Where?
What jolly boys our neighbors were.
Oh, they were. Okay, so it's still mostly men coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It sounds to me like you're being a civilizer there, if we want to invoke gender roles.
And with a pride, both firm and strong. So they're recognizing that they're making it.
Is it the same for these two fellas, though, Will and Frank, when there are all these other people around? It seems like an efflorescence. Things are so much better with all these other people around to help out.
Okay, so the first line is, but the scene has changed around the place. So I guess so.
That was verse 9.
That was 7.
That was 7? Oh.
Yeah.
You don't have to come get this. Okay. Okay. Now here's another interesting element for a buddy story. And you remember Nellie, Will. Whoop, Nellie? Who the heck is Nellie? You remember Nellie, Will, whom we both learned to love, with sunny laugh and brightest golden hair. How she tried to cheer our lives, which were dark indeed, and how she helped drive away our care. But alas, poor Nellie is gone, and her face we'll see no more. Hearts will ever throb with pain. And through the busy, noisy life, I'm thinking of poor Nell and the little old sod dugout on the claim. Now, we've gotten some help with listeners before. When Nancy Kelly suggested that Nellie might be canine.
Well, maybe.
I like that suggestion. I'm not convinced by it, but I would like for it to be so. And then Rebecca Bender pointed out, and she did a little research on this, that Nellie is a generic name in the 19th century for female servants, maids, waitresses, and that sort of stuff. And so, if you write the stories, like serial short stories appearing in newspapers, when you had a housemaid or somebody like that, very often named Nellie.
She wasn't a Nellie. She was named Nellie.
Her name would be Nellie. And I do know that at least Will lived in a boarding house for a while. It's possible these guys are batching on the claim enough to meet residence requirements, but they also got a room at a rooming house in town. In which case, a Nellie.
Seems like we have a love interest here.
And there you go. Buddy narratives, this is what happens. A love interest happens.
Or Daisy too.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if it seems to me like it is a girl or a woman, because she tried to cheer our lives. So there's some agency for the female Nellie.
I first thought there's a female homesteader out there, which is quite common on the plains.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't match her up with any real character.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, one of these guys had a daughter who died.
Oh.
But I couldn't match that up with real. I got excited. I shouldn't get happy about this, but I got real happy when I read that it first came out. When Mrs. James.
Mrs. James.
Jenkins. Mrs. Jenkins and the kids came out. She and a daughter got seriously ill.
Oh.
I thought this is going to be it. This is going to be solve the mystery. Didn't pan out though. So this verse remains a mystery, but it sure is at home in the template for a buddy narrative.
But it could be that just as he's calling Will Billy, maybe Nellie is a different name for somebody else.
Yeah, nickname. Now, as for who really is perhaps coming between the characters in the bromance, well, we now love Kansas, don't we, Will? We've learned her sterling worth, and blessed the day that we settled here. Though our trials have been many, and the way seemed dull and dark, yet the crown is won by those who know no fear. The friends we knew are scattered, Will, but a prayer still follows them. The old tried friends in joy or pain. May the peace and comfort follow them, the same as when they lived near that little old sod dugout on the claim. Yeah, so if they're growing out of the old bromance, what takes place? This is that kind of maturity of a community sense that you referred to before. Then here's your health, dear Billy, may your life be long and fair. May we both glide down the stream of life with a faith that is unshaken in our glorious, proud young state, which hath outlived the trials and strife. May the golden tie of friendship still bind around our hearts. Manhood's virtues be our aim. And keep the fire burning as we did in bygone days in that little old sod dugout on the claim. Oh, the years are rolling o'er me wherever I may roam, and the past has its pleasures and its pain. Down within my heart I'm thinking of those days in that little old sod dugout on the claim. In that little old sod dugout on the claim.
Oh, well, I can see, since I see the script here, that state is capitalized.
Yes?
And so I think now they're working on place building, pride and patriotism. They've successfully laid their claim and made something of this place.
The bromance is a thing of a particular time and place, and that time is past. But the state is capitalized.
It is.
Okay, that's coming around to the idea. This is the character. This is the new sweetheart that has won the affections of both, right?
Mm, yeah.
Ah. This is not a bromance comment. This is but it's a matter of some affection. We read a little earlier this week from other mutual friends of the passing of one Robert M. Utley.
Yeah.
For those not historians among the group tuning in, particularly not Western historians, Robert Utley is the grand old man of Western Americana. I would say probably only he and Howard Lamar are of the same stature.
Wow.
Lamar, of course, is the pinnacle, the epitome of the academic Western historian, and Utley outside the academy, with his career with the National Park Service.
Right. So he came in from a different background, keen about interest, he said, from an early age, particularly...
Okay, you read his obituary that he wrote for himself, right?
Yeah.
I haven't read that yet. Tell us about it.
His wife had asked him many years ago to write his own obituary.
Yeah.
Because she didn't want to be responsible for trying to know all the things that were important to him. And he wrote that at an early age he was very interested in what happened with Custer. And that started him studying history. And he wrote 22 books before passing.
And the last one published just last year.
Yeah. He was one of the founders of the Western History Association.
Yes, indeed. When I was about to start junior high school. Let's get it clear that I'm a little younger than
Okay, I won't put what year it was. It was a long time ago. And he did not graduate with a PhD anywhere.
No.
But he was given 3 honorary PhD from 3 different university institutions that they honored him with a PhD. I thought that was... I've heard of people who got 1 honorary PhD, but he was awarded 3.
He was a scholar of Plains Indians, and particularly Indian-like conflict. So his generation, their main concern in writing Indian history was the conflict with Euro-Americans, chronicling that. But Utley transcended that. He with his biography of Sitting Bull, and his last book was on the Lakota who went to Canada, Sitting Bull and the rest. There were momentous and contentious changes in Western Americana, fought out within the Western History Association in his time of his late middle age. But Bob navigated all that. And so coming out on the other side of it, even though he was part of that old establishment founding the Western History Association in Santa Fe, nevertheless, he came out of it with pretty much universal respect on the other side. Yeah, Robert M. Utley passed this week.
I think he was 93. No, he was in his 90s.
Yes.
But,
Our theme tonight, I haven't even mentioned it, but it's in the Ballads, of course. The title is somewhat autobiographical, Old as Dirt, Ballads of Farming. And so we started out with The Farmer's Son Am I. Went from there to little Old Sod Dug-out on the claim, to the earliest Euro-American settlement of the region. And now let's bring the immigrant angle in on this. Some of the most persistent farmers on the Great Plains, and anthropologists will tell you it is a cultural trait of German peoples on the settlement frontier, were German immigrants. Of course, that's all my stock, and we're not stubborn a bit.
Oh, no.
So I'm bringing before us tonight the song Wie schön ist das Ländliche Leben. I've sung it here before. And I'm semi-capable of rendering the German stanzas. And I'll sing alongside each stanza an English translation. The English translation is my own. And Michael Miller, anybody else who's conversant, obviously, in the old country tongues, will see that that's not an exact translation. No, it's not. It's a poetic translation. There are others who have translated these stanzas more precisely. I was working within the parameters of stanzas and rhyme schemes and so on. And it's true to the sense of the song and pretty much the details within the song. The exact origins of the song are uncertain. Certainly it goes back to the early 19th century romantic tradition in the Germanic principalities of Central Europe. It's a deeply romantic song about ties to the land and delights in being an independent agriculturalist on the land. The song travels to the Russian Empire. And I knew it, most of the time I've known this song, as a song of the Volga-Deutsch, the Volga Germans, the ones who lived on either side of the Volga up there and had come in on the original invitation from the Tsarina. I more recently have learned, however, this song also was current among the Bessarabien Germans down not that far from the Black Sea, you see. So I suspect it's pretty much all over the German settlements, but it travels to this in Russia, but it travels to this country in particular with the Volga Germans and to some degree perhaps from the others. I'd welcome word from other German-Russian communities as to whether the song transferred to your locality on the North American plains. So I'm about to sing Wie schön ist das ländliche Leben and render the English translation alongside every stanza. This gets to be kind of a challenge. I'm not even sure what key I'm going to sing in this in yet. And if one doesn't work out, I can change. What we have in the song, though, is this utterly romantic expression of a oneness with the landscape and affection for a sense of place. Wie schön ist das ländliche Leben, ein Häuschen auf grüner Flur, mit schattigen Bäumen umgeben, glücklich macht mich die Natur, im Schatten der Grünen der Bäume, da sitz ich so gerne allein, es wiegen die goldenen Träume, die schöne Vergangenheit ein. It's good to live out in the country, my house on a carpet of green, as leafy trees wave all around me, the beauty of nature is seen. In the shade of the grove I have planted, I'm happy in solitude here, to pass the whole day on my homestead fulfills every dream I hold dear. Die Schwalbe sitzt oben am Dach, sie zwischen ihr Morgenlied vor. Ich höre, sobald ich erwache, der Vögelein lustigen Chor. Die Wachtel schlägt in den Getreide, die Nachtigall schlägt im Hain. Die Löcke in voller Freude stimmt fröhlich der Morgenlied ein. Now the swallow is perched on my gable, she's singing a sweet morning song. I sit down to my breakfast table with all the birds singing along. The quail in the grain that he loves most, the nightingale out in the grove, the lark in full voice on his fence post, all join in a chorus of love. Now that was maybe the biggest poetic license I took, that line about the lark in full voice on his fence post. But any prairie person out there will forgive me putting the fence post in there with the lark. Zufrieden lebe ich auf dem Lande, obgleich ich kein Edelmann bin. Es finden in mittleren Stande die Tage so fröhlich dahin. Ein Strahl der wachenden Sonne drängt sich in mein Stückchen herein. Ich fühle und segne gewohne, kein König kann glücklicher sein. I ponder as the sunshine grows warmer, and a aristocrat I'll never be. For a middle-class, free-holding farmer is the life for a plain man like me. The sunshine is calling me out to the day's work beneath a blue sky. A rich man would envy if he knew no king is more happy than I. No king is more happy than I. Hey Shane. Dr. K, is everybody behaving themselves out there this week?
They are, but everybody's, including ours, probably internet is not working up to speed.
Ouch.
So,
You know ours has been a little dicey this week.
I do.
Time to end. Our calendar ballad for this week should be self-explanatory. This is my father's word to my listening ears. All nature sings as round me rings the music of the spheres. We sing the awakening land, put the seed into the ground, let the engines roar, carpet heaven's floor, with prayer the machines resound. If this is our Father's world, we are tenants here at best. Let us work the land, let nature stand, our husbandry to attest. The hungry shall be fed, as will every living thing. In the grain and hay let the bobolinks play, the soil and the water sing. In this our Father's world, we're blessed to labor in. Just a little bit of rain on the fruited plain will put another year in the bin. God save our laboring hands, keep the storm and hail away, with abundant yield or an empty field. We bless your holy name every day. Where the deer and the bobolinks play, I like stormy winter days beside the wood fire's cheery blaze. I love to know that the stock is warm for a farmer's son of mine. No matter if his clothes were sometimes plain, planted. I'm happy in solitude here to pass the whole day on my homestead. Fulfills every dream I hold dear. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the sky on a cloudy all day. No, the skies are not cloudy all day. Dr. K.
We now conclude today's edition of the Folk School on Willow Creek. We invite you to join us again next Friday at 8 p.m. Central Time for more songs and stories.